the first thing that I think of is how to read my partner, how to read my opponent. And what I'm usually looking for is how they organize their body, okay? I look at also what part of what part of her body is closest to me, because that immediately means that will be the first point of contact, right? I find it a little bit pointless often to hunt for something that is beyond, because if I try and grab the collar, it's like, keep your hand here. Her hand is already ready to also grab me. And now I'm like kind of locked into a position where it's really easy for her just to lie on her back and bring her feet very high, and I'm engaged in the guard immediately, right? Again, it's not the end of the world that we get stuck in the guard or she establishes a grip, right? It's not the end of the world. But I want to introduce you first to the easiest way to pass any guard. So what might you say is the easiest way to pass any guard? The easiest way to pass someone's guard is when they have absolutely no grips, right? Getting into a situation where she has no grips and I establish the first point of contact. And of course, for those people who are argumentative, like, when is there a situation where my partner has no grips? We'll get onto that in a little bit. But I want you to also understand, because there are those of you in this room who are curious about AOJ style passing. Look at the AOJ athletes, like the roster of athletes and the velocity at which they conduct themselves. It's always usually quite high pace, yeah? You don't really see anyone really moving slowly. So that's already one thing to take into consideration. If you have no desire to pass at a fast speed, you also need to understand how to design your passing game. Because some people who don't have that athleticism nor desire to develop that level of speed, you have to understand, you have to work with what you have. The easiest way that I can pass her guard is to get some sort of grip, create some sort of asymmetry in her body. And one of the easiest ways is also going to be just to knock her down to the floor. Because when my partner is engaged in the act of literally falling through space, when my partner is usually falling through space, they're now reacting. So they're kind of on their back foot. So in this situation, we go slow motion. Sorry. I'm going to go very slowly. She's not doing anything, it's just a demo. I'm basically striking her head like this. I'm receiving the leg from here. But see how in this moment she's falling. So that will be my best opportunity while she has no grips established to try and tempo change that. So let's give another example. I'll switch the legs again. Same thing, so one was like this. Now I'm going to do the reverse of that. So one was this, one is like this. But you see in this situation, she's falling through space again. And I established the grip in the hustle of the movement. So again, we go very, very slow, just so you can kind of understand what I'm trying to convey. Striking the head, pulling the leg. What's happening? Right now, if I read her body positioning, the weight's mainly in her hips, meaning her head is in front of her spine. Because if her head is in the line of the spine, it's going to be always too easy just to push her and she falls backwards, right? So generally when we're in the seated guard position, the head will always be in front of the spine and the butt will be slightly back. Because I can't just simply push her like this, she's not going to fall over. That's why we usually require this leg lift. The leg lift starts to shift the weight into the back space. I strike the head to assist, and it's also a directional component because you see how I organize my feet? I'm not up here, I'm not trying to do this, I'm not trying to do this. I organize my body, and see how I align my body? So push, 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 and I follow. Because now I already have a grip, well, it's already easy for me to start understanding where I want to advance in the space. Which leads me back to the next thing that I kind of was briefly mentioning throughout the introduction circle. You need to have a destination in mind. You cannot just pass and then decide, oh shit, I passed, now where do I go? You know, because then it's already too late. Because you're thinking oh, maybe the side control, ooh, I'm not really good at pinning in this position. This needs to be a bit pre-decided. Of course, there's always the element of improvisation in jiu-jitsu. You cannot be too attached to any idea. But you need to have this first preliminary idea. If things don't go the way you want, then you improvise. But if you already have no plan A, it's unlikely that you have plan C, B, C, D. Again, I'm just going to repeat what I said. I first want you to contemplate what's directly in front of you, whether your partner's in the seated position or like lying down. We'll start with the seated position. It's more like a general exercise. We're going to keep it super simple, nothing super complicated to start with. Again, the hand is the very first thing that I see. So I won't just immediately go and grab the leg, because it's similar to the example that I just gave. If her hand is here and I immediately go to grab the collar, she's simultaneously going to engage herself in action. But if I see the hands here and I want the collar, for example, like I might try and do something like maybe I get a cross grip and then I'll do it. Then I start to proceed through the space. I want to occupy her attention elsewhere first. Because if I occupy something, right? If I do this, she reacts, do something. But then I'm already ahead. I know where to turn from change. I know where to occupy the space next. But if I completely disregard that, I'm just doing this. Look, her eyes are looking at me. She's going to start grabbing me. But if I do something, it could be completely ridiculous. Like, I do it, a lot of Brazilians do it, like, but it's more the concept. I'm engaging her attention. I'm like, woohoo, woohoo, and then I grab something, right? And of course, don't start making weird noises in competition. You're tagging me on Instagram, please don't do that. Don't do that. But understand what I'm trying to get at. If I can cognitively engage her with the wrong thing, I make her think about something else. So she's like, oh shit, my hand is there, right? And again, so do go hand, and now we can already walk to the back. But if we're already thinking, I need to do a knee cut, and then I put my hands here, and then I get something close to it. Instead of if I want a knee cut, let's not go directly to the hips. Let's just think about, take a step back. I need her to be on her back. What body movement can I do that allows her to get to her back? So I could stay a little bit further out, and I can figure out a situation that makes more sense, keeps me safer for longer, and then enter the position, right? Because I've already kind of flustered my partner in the process, then I arrive in the position. But sometimes we're too keen, we're too fast to want to get to where we're trying to go to. I want to see where my partner's base of support is. If I'm doing this, but her arm is helping her stay in the position, it doesn't make any sense that I'm trying to off-balance her into the line of support. It will make more sense, see that? There's nothing here. So it means that her back can fall into the space. On that side, her back cannot yet fall. The only way that I can make her fall in that direction is if I manage to push her away from the line of the frame. But if I keep pushing in this direction, it doesn't matter how much force I have, she's not going anywhere because it's going in the line of the frame. But if I can move her in such a way that it still kills the frame, and what I mean by killing the frame is I go in a direction where it's not strong. For example, I just like that. I just want you to kind of push over this. Yeah, so straight to quick. In this position, she can take a lot of weight because I'm deciding to put all my weight in the line of the frame. But if I go against the line of the frame, immediately the frame dies. Like we can get rid of it, right? So apply the same idea. Even in the seated guard, remind yourself like, okay, like all I need to do is go almost at a perpendicular angle and we can get rid of it, okay? After we do this off balancing and follow, observe this hand, one more time. So almost imagine you're like a T-Rex with this arm, just so you can have a visual and a reminder to do this. Some of you are grabbing the collar initially. I want you to try and prioritize the head, and there's a reason for this too. Occupying attention. Here, it's like we're so delicate and sophisticated in the game, like dainty. You need to grab the collar. Like you want to club the person's head and occupy their attention. I'm clubbing and pushing the person down. But some of you are grabbing, and again, my main point is coming. You're leaving your arm here, and you're attaching yourself to close distance. Your arm will often fall into an extended position because your partner is falling backwards. You will not always have control of the situation. You may not always fall or arrange your body in the desired position. But we want to try and control as much as we can, right? So what am I suggesting? You want to consider your own base. If I attach myself permanently to her by this grip, and let's say she falls proactively, but kind of like fall more backwards. Okay, you see how like she's bringing me? I don't want that to happen. How do we avoid that? So I'm pushing the head, I'm lifting the leg, I retract. I'm always over my own base. Look at where my head is in relation to my hips and my feet. I'm always over my own axis. But if I'm here, you see there's a forward lean. You see, look at my toes, how active they are. They're like grabbing the ground. I don't feel balanced. It's going to be easy for her to manipulate my weight, move me around. But I want to be in control. So again, I'm pushing, I retract. This hand is ready, so if she tries to grab or whatever, but I'm ready to go in another position. I'm ready to have both hands active. There's nothing wrong with the collar grip, because there'll be many positions where we'll want to get to the collar, but on your own terms. Don't try and get it too early, is what I'm saying, okay? So we're going to practice one more time. Really emphasizing head, retract. Go slower, so look, pushing, I'm here. I stay attached to the leg, but it's good to have at least one point of contact because she moves that leg, like I can just move out of the way and I already funnel myself into the new position. Okay? I know you really like your training partner, but don't go and caress their neck because it looks like, oh, it's like an affectionate. You're not going to do anything with the neck. You're going to give them a sore neck. It's better that you actually, we're at the crown of the head for a reason. I want my partner to physically look down. If I'm touching their neck, it just looks like affectionate. You know what I mean? So I want you to physically find the crown of your head. You're not going to hurt your partner. Just do it properly. So like if she's resisting me, right, in this moment that she's resisting me, this creates a backward weight shift. That's the whole point. I'm not just touching her head to touch her head. Because if she doesn't react, we'll go into front headlock, right? We can go into front headlock, or we can do some sort of rolling guillotine, etc., etc. Grabbing the crown, and she has like this backward reaction. And then we can start to circle, 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 and design the sequence, okay? But you are choosing to have this, which is, it's good for positions where we also have the collar, because then we can kind of do this push and pull, right? Like for a lot of like more old school passes too. But in this situation, always having a C grip allows us to bring the leg across the center line. You're a little bit more like this, versus before you were like out here, which immediately provides the most amount of surface area to my partner possible. What you never want to do for the guard player, especially if you're rolling with me, don't do it. Don't provide surface area. How do we minimize surface area as a guard passer? Don't stand square, firstly. We always blade our body. What does blading mean? Like a boxer, it's like I move one side. Because the slant of the body, this diagonal path that I'm giving to my partner, if I stand square, he can step on me and it's flat. If I'm side on, you step, it goes across. Or at least it will slide past the body. So again, generally we're not standing super upright. So if I stand like this, the likelihood of you falling over, extremely high. So you're likely in a staggered stance, and you're likely also organizing your torso at more of a parallel to the floor. Because in this way, I deny all the space of my torso, just simply by doing this. Because literally the only thing you can step on in this situation is my face, which is not legal, and it's not nice either, so don't do it too costly. here, like, as I have my face on my shoulders, and my hands are here, so if you try to step on my shoulders, it just looks like there's a mosquito around, like, a little bit like this, right? So it's easy for me to kind of organize my body in this situation. Anytime I feel someone trying to step on me, I can use the combination of the blading and footwork and also the hands to deflect the legs. Yeah, so I guess like if it's in front of me, like why am I contemplating? It's like maybe I'll get a secret here, but for me, I already instinctively, I feel like temperature changing in front of me. So it might be a case of like just getting used to like multiple different ways. Because right now I'm just providing 2 ways. It's like 1, 2. But you can also like palm strike him and the chest. Not his face, but the chest is okay. It's like anything that will off balance. That's why I'm a very big advocate. Don't think about choreography. Think about body movement. What am I trying to achieve? I'm trying to achieve that his back is moving out. It doesn't matter. You could even use the foot. That's what I mean by kind of like occupy the attention and diversify what you're doing. You don't have to use the hands every time. Because now that I showed you, and you go to spar, like he said, if you spar with him, he knows what you're doing. Right? So it's going to be harder already because you have the same information. But if you use the concept, I just want to off down. Go for it. So try one more time, just don't kick it together. Yeah, and it doesn't matter like what the rep looks like now, you know, but I already know now when you go to practice, you already have more tools. You're like, oh shit, I can go like this, or level change, just make it more diverse, and then it will be harder to keep up. Because right now we're also very frontal. Like, you can use more footwork, that's going to overwhelm your partner, you know? And you can use more misdirection. You see, like, I'm just kind of going the same way. It's cross-stepping. Just make it look weird. People can't keep up with things that look weird. You shouldn't be exhausting yourself to the point that you have absolutely no energy. Because then it's counterproductive, right? It's more so like now that we're introducing the concept and the way of thinking, that we practice it to a point where, okay, I'm not using too much energy. Because if we're using too much energy, probably now we need to back off, reserve a little bit more energy, and reconsider what the strategy should be. Most of the time, I assume if you were fighting someone roughly the same skill level as you, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to find the holes, to find the gaps. Of course, if you're rolling with someone who's higher skill level, more experienced, it's more likely that you're going to fatigue, but there's always a way. It's more just practicing this, and then introducing different types of techniques, more like what we're going to go into, which is the chaining for the techniques that we're doing this one. I want to see what my partner's base of support is. If I'm doing this, but her arm is helping her stay in the position, it doesn't make any sense that I'm trying to off-balance her into the line of support. It will make more sense, so there's nothing here. So it means that her back can fall into this space. On that side, her back cannot yet fall. The only way that I can make her fall in that direction is if I manage to push her away from the line of the frame. But if I keep pushing in this direction, it doesn't matter how much force I have, she's not going anywhere because it's going in the line of the frame. But if I can move her in such a way that it still kills the frame, and what I mean by killing the frame is I go in a direction where it's not strong. For example, just like that. This one you kind of push on this. Yeah, so straight to take. In this position, she can take a lot of weight because I'm deciding to put all my weight in the line of the frame. But if I go against the line of the frame, immediately the frame dies. Like we can get rid of it, right? So apply the same idea. Even in the seated guard, remind yourself, like, okay, like all I need to do is go almost at a perpendicular angle and we can get rid of it, okay? The easiest way to pass up on this guard is going to be in a position where they have no grips. As you can see, like, you're going to get to the end outcome much faster if they don't have grips, but it's also not super realistic. So especially if we're fighting someone who's same skill level or higher skill level than us, it's quite likely that our partner's going to be able to get grips on us. But I want you to understand in the competitive setting, especially like if we consider something like a guard pull, like my partner pulls guard on me, and there are like a multitude of ways to like make that immediately asymmetric and immediately pass the guard. when my partner doesn't have grips on both sides of the center line especially, or if I can like misalign one point of contact, it makes it immediately much harder to pass. So how do you traditionally pull that? Sorry? Okay, you just pull out here. This is not so, this is not so. So you do the more traditional one, just in more to this one. So like, especially in this type of guard pull, this is going to be the one where I try to explain the conceptual part a little bit. So let's do one more time, super slow motion. So as she pulls, the idea is that I have to misalign the foot so that she doesn't have points of contact on both sides of my body, ideally. Now she has 2 points of contact on my upper body already, but if I have the freedom of my legs also, it's going to be a much easier scenario for me to start creating directional changes. So just like that. You see immediately now, I'm already in a position where I've created an angle and I can get to the side. Yeah. Well, you see how I can also use the elbow in the situation, and I'm immediately already in a passing position. The reason why I briefly bring this up, I do remember some people saying that you start a fight, like often when you get stuck in a close guard and stuff. These are some ways, like it's super easy, just understanding how to manage space, manage distance, but also understanding like what is the defining point of the guard pull. If she just has two hands here, that's not a guard pull. We need a way to create enough tension. It's a push and pull relationship between the upper body and the lower body. We do not have a contact point on the hips. It becomes very, very difficult for her to establish control and to manage the distance between my body and her body. Okay, so we just look at that one more time. We don't have to practice this right now. It's just to have an understanding. It's super basic, but again, more as an explanation. Or you can even do something just like, do you see how I'm just literally tucking my elbow? I'm never leaving any limb extended, just tucking my elbow and staying tight here. And keeping ourselves pulled up also as the guard passer gives us so many opportunities to pass through the stakes. Before I start to show some passing sequences now, because we did this exercise all together where it was a slightly resisted environment, what are any observations, anything that you noticed that came up while you were trying out the movements that you'd like to show? Anything that felt a little bit problematic, or like, I could have done this better, stuff like that.
Like you said, your goal is always to go to the back, right? So even if you would establish a side control for this, you still would aim for the back, or you would try to make something like a quick finish out of side control, like a submission.
No, I think like, so for myself, I put everything into perspective of I'm fighting a black belt worlds. So I want to maximize my chances of finishing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I will veer away from the side control, but I want to put myself in any position where I feel I will be able to either control the best or to submit, like wherever I have the most submissions from, or the highest percentage submissions. So for me, generally I would feel most comfortable either on the back or in the mount position. So I would also progress accordingly. It's like, I accumulate the points also. If I go from side control, get to the back, it's more points. But for sure, I think I would try to funnel into any area where I feel like I'm going to maximize my chances. Yeah. So if side control, like, I'm okay at it, I'm not amazing at it, I want to maximize my chances. Like, if I stay in side control and it's not my best position, I'm going to get someone who's going to regard, and I have to start all over again. And this often is quite common what we observe in competition, right? Like, especially like color belts. Like we see a lot of color belts doing really good things, passing and doing this to get a side control, and then they regard, we have to start all over again, right? But if we get a position, we want to try our best to maintain the position. Try not to create repetitive cycles. I'm shifting my base wherever I go, which hopefully I can just do the next sequence if I can demonstrate. So everywhere that I go, I'm always taking my weight with me. I'm never really overcommitting because I'm always making these small steps. And again, it doesn't really matter about the technique, it's more just the concept that I'm bringing my weight with me, or I'm using very big movements, that it doesn't feel hard to pick up my body. But sometimes when we move, we spread our weight too far, it's always going to feel really hard to pick up our body. I consider my partner's center line. So if I overcommit to one side of the center line, so let's say I'm in a knee cut as well. I'm in the knee cut, she doesn't have the knee shield. I'm committing a lot of weight this way. It means my legs are light, so it's easy for me to be moved around and such. But I try to focus most of my attention on now, not only pinning the shoulders, I pin the shoulders via pinning the chin. But most of my weight is directed towards the center line in this case. Right here, and of course I fully pass. I want to keep a little bit more weight to the near side. If I overcommit here, it's always going to be a little bit easy to get top of the roller. To commit the weight to the near side, the worst thing that can happen is she pushes into me. She pushes into me, and I still have opportunities to just come to the other side. And I'll just keep like kind of moving until I feel like I successfully can, not only again pinning the shoulders, pinning the hips, but I try and find a method of wedging the hips. So if you look at my right knee is not on the side of the hip. My right knee is underneath of the butt. So I'm wedging my hand from both sides. But this also limits a lot of rotation. I also want you to consider there are two types of side control, or multiple types. You have a high side control and a low side control. But often a low side control is kind of more conducive to pinning the hips too. Sometimes we're up here, but it's hard for me to keep a lot of weight if I'm high. But if I get a low side control, it's much easier for me to hug the hips a little bit more because I'm kind of encasing it with my right elbow and my right forearm, and my right leg is doing a lot of the work here, kind of like creating like a closed circuit. I'll show it, then I'll break it down. Bring this a little bit. And so I just kind of did a couple of different sequences, but they all kind of have the same beginning, as you can see, and we'll tackle them one at a time. This is not actually a lot of different moves. What you need to understand again ultimately is the concepts and what we're trying to achieve, so goals and concepts. first thing we're trying to look at is like, of course, I'm trying to cut the angle. I'm mainly showing it from a frontal position just to speed up time. But again, like, you can even use the exercise from before. So if you come to seated position. I plant myself here. And for like this one specifically, we can go straight into crazy bell, for example. The other one is more like kind of Toriando style, so more off the capacity. I go a little bit more. In this type of situation, it's more like I'm just kind of tamping and maintaining the angle. But for this hand, because we're using the leg lift initially to start, I planted back on the knee for stability. Okay? But it's not a necessity to chain both at this moment. Okay? We want to maximize the information retention of this particular sequence, then later we can combine. So immediately, my positioning is important. I don't want to be upright, I don't want to provide too much surface area. So my starting position is like this, like a mini T-Rex. And her feet somewhat in this line of space, okay? Immediately, the first thing that I'm looking to do, keep my hands right in front of my chest. I want to make really small movements like this just to kind of parry the leg out. Kind of just getting used to it. And you see how I combine, it's not just this, because then I'm still in a frontal position. Because I'm starting in a standing stance, which means one leg forward, one leg back, after I parry, immediately there's like a slight lateral step. So I always kind of practice just immediately coming to take a lateral step. So I'm already a little bit angled. So parrying, I step not only sideways, but forward and diagonal. So if I step sideways, so everyone played Tetris before? We don't move like this in Jiu-Jitsu, right? It's like 360. It's like we have every single dimension available. So we want to act accordingly to that. I don't want to just step laterally because that doesn't take me closer to being in front of her hip line or creating an asymmetric scenario. What do I mean by asymmetric scenario? Right now, she's positioned very square. She has both shoulders on the floor, both hips on the floor. It's always going to be easier for me to pass her guard if we pin our partner to one side. And by pin, yes, it's not exactly the same definition as like a side control pin or mount pin. But I want you to think about this in terms of space, availability of space. When she's in this position, there's this much space on this side and the same amount of space on the other side. So she has the ability to move and rotate through both spaces in this position. Immediately pinning her to one side, we understand what movement options she has available relative to this leg being pinned to the back. So it's almost as if I'm psychic. Because if I put myself in a knee cut in this position, generally when you put yourself in a knee cut with a partner, you should have the ability to understand roughly what movement options are available and what reactions and defenses, what attacks she might have. That should further inform you about how to advance in the space. Okay? Just some food for thought. So, lateral step. I'm going to open my knee over her shin, not her knee. Over her shin. If you go over your partner's knee, it's going to hurt like a motherfucker. Don't do it. Just go over the shin, okay? Also, it's going to be easier to pin the leg. Look. I externally rotate my right leg. I also internally rotate my back leg. So this is going to happen first. Left leg reaches. Right leg reaches. I'm in this position. So I'm still hooking onto my partner's shin in this position. I'm going to now release and replant my position in here. This leads to a multitude of different positions too. But if we are planted in this position too, it's also very easy for us to start underhooking the leg and getting into this type of position. And then depending on how my partner reacts or where they put their weight, so if she starts to open up her right leg a bit, yeah, good. So just trying to tighten this, right? Then see, like what I'm doing here, I align my left elbow with my hip. So I walk my hip to my elbow. As I do this, it kind of compresses her more, so it folds her body, bringing legs to chest. So it becomes easy for me to drive with my back leg. I also use my right hand as an assist. So I'm pulling the pants in this position and driving with my back leg. It becomes easy for me to stack my partner in this position. And from the stack position, it's easy for me to perch here. I just create a bit of a forward weight shift with my chest. So I'm trying to keep the weight and the toes in this position. So if you guys have interest in developing the conversation on stacking, we can touch that a little bit later too. So it's like a lot of easy ways to finish passing from here. So left, right, hand post, repart. Notice it's not too close to me. Pant is slightly out. Okay. From here, I keep my hand posted, and my left arm is going to club diagonally across the top leg. As I do that, I simultaneously go into a tripod. So I'm going to club, because if I club and don't move, it just becomes a knee shot. Then she can kick me and I'm on my butt now, right? So as I club, I vacate the space. This is the opposite of occupying space. Because now that I'm here, my head tripods, and I just staple across both legs. Now, with the right arm, this is personal preference, but I really like using the seater to pin my partner's arm into the body, because you can also do this in yoga as well, which I really personally enjoy. Otherwise, you can also just grab the bottom collar. And again, always thinking about, we don't just use our arms and feet, it's always, almost every part of our limb can be used, but just to make it a bit more simple right now, arms, legs, and head. We often underutilize our heads, but they're really great body parts to actually pin people. Like, this is so annoying. And the head is the most underutilized weapon to pin people. But anyway, so from here, my left arm is just hugging the hip, so also can use the fourth finger finger. My right arm is pinning the arm into the body. Also, I'm also using my head to keep my partner in. And I'm just going to do what I call a donkey kick in my right leg. And I unravel both at the same time. Goes from this lateral staple, donkey kick, unravel. And all my weight at this moment is on my hip. It's pretty heavy. And then I just extend my left leg back. And it's up to you with your finishing position again. I keep funneling to the back tick. So my hand is already in place behind the collar to curve forward and get the seat up. Okay? But if you decide to go to the side control, design the sequence as such. Okay? So again. So I'm keeping my torso and spine relatively parallel. And I'm not planting my left hand super high. Because initially I might be in some sort of position where it looks like I'm leg dragging. I want us to get used to the parry and just getting into a more optimal position to initiate the sequence. So as I go from here, now I can internally rotate my left knee, open the right, hand comes out, plug ourselves here. Strike the leg, tripod, plug. I would use a C-grip on the bicep, or alternatively, you probably see me do this a lot too. I just kind of scoop everything into my leg. That also works pretty well. We're just trying to get to the side control. I'm going to swim in front of the arm. Okay, let's show one more time. We will talk a bit more about chaining after we practice the drill a little bit, but if I do a little bit of preliminary breakdown, what are we doing initially here with the parrying is connected with leg drags already, because innately, this is just a shortened version because she's not reacting in the situation. And we're rehearsing a choreography so we can understand more about different techniques. But if we look at this, this is the foundation of a lot of leg drag movements, using the C grips to maneuver where the legs are in space. And that can already lead to a lot of passes in itself. We just have to increase our understanding of, again, what spaces are we trying to enter around the body if we're using the leg drag. So then you see in one really common one is I create an angle, I use the C grip, and I collect this like knee scooping motion. Just super, super strong. Because as long as I have this knee scooping motion, all I have to do is pin the far side shoulder. I can kind of go into like a reverse knee on belly, and I'm pretty much passed. Alternatively, if she throws that far side leg over, like nice on my shoulder, it becomes really easy for me to also pin both legs together, and she's completely stuck in the situation. So, show one more time. So that's part one. Now it's part two. So, club, head down. Head is on the chest. Hug the hips, lateral stay pulled. Either collar and pull down. You can also pull on top of the knee, or completely hug around the shoulder line and close the elbow to the partner's bicep. Donkey kick, unravel. I have a back take, side control, or balance. Your personal choice.
So I can close here. The switch here kind of makes me feel like I'm too far away to do this.
Your body is a little bit like, let's correct the weight distribution of this. So do one more time, just preliminary footwork. Okay, so I'm going to pull like a Dragon Ball pose. But you're committing too much of your right leg. I'm not committing so far. This is more like a pressure passing style. So, one step. This is going to go down first, but it's 1 and 2. So L post on the knee, C grip on the shin. So as I step, I match my head position with the knee. But I don't want my knee to go to the armpit. I literally just want to bring his body to the side. Just take it. So I'm here. Now I turn the left knee. It touches the mat. Now I'm going to put my right knee on the mat. My left knee comes up. Again. I step, left, touches, right touches. Look, I'm looking sideways. This way. And this is from here into this position. So now what I'm doing, I'm going to take my right hand off. And I don't want it so close to his head. Because I feel like I'm going to overcommit here. He might try to attack my arm, and I don't like it so much. I just bring it like next to my knee. And now look, I don't replace like this. I keep this as long as possible, and now I bring my left to make sure it's still tracking. Because I'm worried about if I just simply take it off, it'll like this. Maybe he already got reversed double hebo, and he's trying to connect to me. It's changing the problem already. But you'll see, come to the side so you can see my feet a little bit. I'm still hooking as long as possible, but I'm replacing every little thing. Now I apply. So I'm here. And you know, if he does try and grab my arm, like it's pretty easy for me to go back into this position now. Yeah, if I feel the threat. But otherwise, because we're just practicing, there's no threat. Now I club, and now this knee is going to come back up, so I shift the weight back into my feet. But then this goes to hug the hips, this comes across laterally. But focus just on the foot, like, don't worry about the lateral stable. Try one more. Everything is left, right, left, left, right, left. Don't resist the temptation, go back, standing, standing, standing. You keep wanting to do dragon wall, I don't know what it is, but that's all. Stay here. That's all. Start again now. Start again. This was already better, but I want you to clean up. Because what you're doing, you're starting here, then you're bringing this back, and then you're coming down here. And then it feels very off down. So I want you to stay a little tighter. So wherever you are, try and keep it tight. Don't try and go super far back. Use Kim to lighten your weight. So I'm using the grips. I'll initially step this way, and my head follows. Wherever the knee is, my chin is going to follow. I'm not adjusting this back. Instead, you're adjust the front leg. Now it goes down. Now it goes down, and then you just face onto the knees. Okay? No. You have this little. You're like a kangaroo. You're just like. Go one more time. One more thing. I saw a few people doing this. What's not optimal about this position?
Right foot.
Yes, tell me more about the right foot. Who's that?
Which walking?
Yes, exactly. We're starting here. We're going to end up in the headquarters. It's not the end of the world, but not what we're practicing. So I want the specificity of where you're placing your left hand. Be really on point. Lie down for me. There's a difference between grabbing the grip on the outside and arranging the grip on the inside. I know it sounds, Margot, it's not fucking rocket science. Like, bear with me. I'm positioning not just my hand, but I'm positioning my body in a way that I can keep this leg away from me. You see how my hand is going to be in alignment with my shoulder at a certain point. And I am trying to stay in the inside space. If I'm starting on the outside space, I'm always going to have to commit to using some type of leg work to get in between the legs. So in order to keep it most tidy, either organize yourself so you can also like grab the inside of the knee. I don't personally like this grip too much. I do prefer the C grips, but you can also play around with grabbing a little bit of material and shifting the material to the inside. Then you create a pressure gradient with both of the legs. What do I mean by pressure gradient? The amount of push that I give between the two legs, eventually you will feel a stopping point. Otherwise, if there's not a stopping point, you probably sprained your friend's groin. So that's not good. You know, like eventually, when you push, it reaches a limit. You know, if you keep pushing, you're just an asshole, so don't do it. You reach the limit, right? So that's what I mean by pressure gradient. There's a relationship between the two legs. But if I can position myself between the two, reach the limit without injuring my partner, you'll find it very effective to move and manipulate your partner, okay? So I want you to do the same. Don't do that. You were doing good with the front leg. So come here. Come here. Then, take too long. So you take the leg all the way out, just get used to this. Well, if you're used to this, then you can kind of close the space more. Let's see, a live problem solved. There's a lot of times that I like to get stuck here, but it depends on what the technique is going to be. Because I like to go to the leg trap, and the leg trap needs me to be facing in this direction. And if I'm here, well, we just haven't reached that part yet, but it's just like with the E series of techniques, you come to here. It's also just to introduce a lot of different shapes. Right now, what my ambition for the seminar is to show a lot of different shapes, although like very similar movements. And then you can kind of see like where it might be more appropriate. Kind of come back here, which so there's certain points in time, like if I'm doing more diving things, I think I end up gravitating more towards the V-cut. But in terms of like a lot of the AJ repertoire, It's all mainly from this position. So as long as I adjust the outside leg, like a lot of these movements, they're just like kind of going from side to side. And that's why we're required to kind of stay in this position. But it's always, as soon as you turn sides, you know, you end up in a knee cut. It's just a shape thing. But I kind of use them all in different situations, depends who I'm going against. You may have heard this before, but there are different types of passing. And I don't mean like stacking or any of like those differentiations yet. But we have through, we have over, we have under, and we have around. Okay? And I want you to always think about your partner's body almost like a map. That you need to understand. You need to understand what the destination is, as I said earlier. So as you look at your partner, you are already kind of like a GPS designing the route in your head. Okay? So even with the techniques I just showed, the sequence I just showed, I want you to try and like look at it and try and like draw a path or visualize a path in your mind, like you had a paintbrush or a pen, and you start to draw it. Actually, what's going on? What's the purpose for this movement? What is it trying to achieve? Okay, and then you start to notice things opening up. Right? Again, I create the pressure gradient. I start doing my diagonal lateral step. The body is pinned to one side. I maintain the pressure. I level change. I'm already close to being in front of the hip line. I replace my knee onto my partner's knee so I'm able to pin my partner in some capacity. I maintain my left hand on my partner's top shin with a little bit of forward pressure. Now, it is going to be dependent in reality on what her reaction is, because if I try to slop down but there's a very strong force going to the outside, it's not going to happen there. But because this space stays occupied, then I have opportunities just to invade that space, right? So what it's doing is also increasing your understanding of how to manipulate space or how to manipulate the reaction. So maybe we don't get to the triangle. Maybe it's just super wide. Maybe you don't feel really good about going to the knee cut, but just as an example, it's more about identifying the window of when you can occupy space. The knee cut would be very appropriate in this situation. But alternatively, also, as I showed earlier, we cannot swat it down for some particular reason. We always have the ability to go under. If you just think about what I said, over, under, through, around, so this one we have in the over, right? And then we start finishing by going around. And then this one we can go under and around, right? The knee cut is not just going through the person's cut. But what you're ultimately trying to think about yourself is you're trying to think about yourself like a car or some type of vehicle. Just because you decide to go one direction, it doesn't mean that, okay, actually destination, there's too much traffic in this area, it's congested. I'm trying to go knee cut and she puts all these frames. There's so many frames now, I don't want to knee cut anymore. It's too much work. So I try to think about the situation and how to manipulate it to go into a zone where there is much less traffic. Okay? So just by utilizing the words in your head, you may not have the technical vocabulary yet, but I believe most of you all have vocabulary in each of these categories already. I want you to think now of your partner, after I should have explained. Over, under, through, around. Look at the techniques that I showed and also start to think about your own jiu-jitsu. Think about how you can use the body movements to get to the position that you want. Think about the blading. Think about the surface area. So I'm coming into the same position, but this time I'm going to stop at a knee cut. I get into the knee cut, she's going to provide me with a knee shield. Okay? One of the most common positions that we get into jiu-jitsu. Bring one of you a bit closer to me. Okay. So she's giving me a low knee shield in this situation with you guys. And sometimes if we just try and knee cut it from here, it doesn't really work. It's really hard and knee shield is strong. We need a better way to get rid of it. Okay? One of the best ways that I really like to use is the crazy dog pass. There are a multitude of different ways to do the knee shield. Okay? So for those of you who also do a lot of yoga, you must be familiar with here for neutralizing the knee. This works in the D very well also, but for the sake of modern passing, AJ passing, we don't do as much as that. But remember, if we're starting from far distance going into mid distance, continuing on the theme, I want to try and show you more of how to manipulate the different distances to your advantage. Just a lot of going in and going out. Going in to go out to go back in. So we're just starting initial again. So from here I'm going to go into a tripod position. So I'm going to place my head on the front side of my body. What I often see when I'm demonstrating this technique is that people start putting their head on the side of the ribcage. But understand, wherever you place your head is also going to determine how you balance yourself and how you maintain your base. You keep your head on the front side of the body, you're going to have a better time of maneuvering around your partner. So let me do it once and then I'll kind of break it down with you. One time. If you stretch the bottom leg out, it's still pretty easy to get in front of you. And for bladder retention purposes, the further away you're keeping your knee, you're opening up that space. Even if I don't slide through, something as simple as just putting my knee across here, and it's going to allow me to get into the knee cup position. So try your best when you're at the bottom. You don't have to keep it all the way up, but understand something as simple as just keeping your knee to your chest. You don't raise your arm. Yeah. If I knee cut here, there's no knee cut. If I complete the knee cut, I'm creating back exposure for myself. And she can easily just get the underhook and come up and rest a lot. Okay? So try not to stretch the bottom leg. Here, tripod in. I grab the crosscut from here, and this leg is going to cut down and diagonal on the shin. As I do this, my right knee is going to go higher, and I start lifting myself up towards the shoulder. And in this situation, I don't have a lot of weight yet, but if I come back to my feet, she'll definitely feel the weight from here. Okay? But for the sake of what I was doing, I'm still on my knees. If you want to make the person feel more weight, you come back to your feet. Then you can transition upward. But if you just want to get a feel of the movement, I'd recommend start doing the leg work, put your knee back down, and understand the easiest way to increase the amount of weight that your partner is going to perceive is just go back to your feet. As soon as you tripod like that, it's going to feel extremely heavy. Just underneath that. So I'm cutting across, left knee down, right knee down. I can walk and I stay here. If you want to finish and side control, all I need to do is just open my head and stretch the arms and legs just like so. If you want to come around the outside, so yeah, I'm tripoding. I grab the cross grip. And so the reason why we tripod, guys, I try to get the cross grip without tripoding, you're always going to grab the hands in a really open location. And often, you may be able to do it, but I find that most of the time it's easy for me to achieve this grip if I tripod across. I vacate the space, and I go for it, okay? If we're trying to go around, I'm going to level change by bringing my butt a little bit closer to the mat, and I don't let go of this angle. I'm always trying to pull it around and also trying to use my forearm to manage the space. So see, I don't flare this elbow, I'm pushing it down, so if she gives me a little bit of resistance, if this is your legs, I'm able to use my forearm to push the leg down. So now from here, I'm going to bring my leg across the lateral pin again, and I keep holding on the pant sleeve. I bring my head back to the inside. I start pressing my leg. Now I can release the passive and just do the same as what we were doing in the previous step. Okay, one more time. So I pretty much have my right ear to my partner's butt in this situation, and I just start to level, just my jaw, for a second. I can level change. I want you to explore with your partner too. I don't want you to sit on the floor. I'm just sitting because I'm explaining. If you sit, all the weight goes to the floor. It's not heavy. If you want to start to feel where your weight is, and you can also try and just maintain control from this position without rushing. Just keep your weight kind of like your body surfing. You can bring your head back out, go back to the north south, come back down, and eventually get to your final position. So we're thinking about the crazy dog posture. So far, our entry point is like I'm starting at the ankle, I proceed to the knee, I get to the knee cut, so I'm kind of like at the level of the hip already. When we talk about, so to me this is already a checkpoint. This is the first checkpoint, we're getting to the knee cut. But now the next obstacle is this knee shoulder, the morning part, right? So, like for me, I could consider the next checkpoint to be planting the head in the tricep, because it offers a lot of stability. And once I'm here with the CrossFit, try and like flail around a little bit. It's pretty hard for that to flail around. And then when I feel her flail around, I just try and put even more weight, and I try and stay heavy. Almost like she's the wave, but I'm the surfer. But the more I feel her push, I manipulate the amount of pulling force from the collar. I'm not just dead fish, just holding. I feel like she's moving more. I pull more, almost like I'm fishing. But I need to use a little bit more force to try and like reel the fish in. So I do my fish. And then between the cross grip, I'm just playing with the amount of pulling force from both ends, which will eventually fatigue her, and then I can take my time to find where I think the next checkpoint is. But I don't think it's too necessary to make concrete checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3. I think primarily I would say the knee cut, you get to the knee cut, and the head tripod. Once you have that, I think if you can get to the head tripod on the majority of people and you do it well, it's pretty much game over. You're going to pass. So far, we haven't tackled any concrete guard positions. It's like all open guard right now. So in the Q&A portion, if you have specific questions about like spider or X guard, it's a good time to ask. It's just very hard to, again, in 3 hours to cover every single type of way of passing, but also understand there are like some like key things that if we just like, to play spider and spider lasso, you need to bend someone's arms. So try and think about how you can straighten your arms. Sometimes it's often as easy as really just standing up and stop. But it's a very specific way of passing. It's also a very specific way of trying to find a way that you can straighten your arms. Because against someone like Patrick puts me in spider lasso, I'm not going to stand up. Like, it's not possible just to immediately stand up. But there are ways that I can think about, okay, what will I do in order to find a way to straighten the arm. You'll see there's a recurring theme that I'm trying to look for a method to straighten the arms that doesn't allow my partner to stay established in the spider lasso position. So we're getting back to here. This time we're going under, because we didn't spend too much time talking about under. So I'm going under, and what I'm looking to do is to connect my shoulder to my hip. So I'm coming here, and see how I'm coming all the way across the hip. My left knee is on the mat. Now this is going to windshield wipe to the other side, as my right hand comes behind the bottom knee line. So I'm coming around here, I walk. So I briefly talked about bringing my hips to the level of my elbow. I'm going to bring my left ear behind my partner's knee line, okay? Because actually, what we're going to do from here, there's a couple of things. I can finalize the pass already from here, but most of the time, if my partner's persistent, he's not just going to let me do that, then I'm going to try and transition the move into more of a stack. So if my partner's not persistent, we can just finish the pass immediately, right? That persistent, there's a couple of things that we can do. So I keep my elbow tight with my hip, my ear is close to my partner's knee line. Remember I have my back leg driving. My right hand is a 4-finger pan grip to lift my partner's hips. So I'm trying to bring my partner's toes to the mat. As I do that, you'll see how my knee is behind her spine so that her hips don't fall back down. If I just drag and I don't put anything there, it's just going to fall over, and most likely I'll end up center, square with my partner. So I spent a lot of energy to get back into the same situation and lost it. So I'm side on, I'm stacking, I drag. And now I replace the space in my chest. And see from here, I'm trying to obtain 2 collar grips from here. If you have the mobility, I'd suggest trying to get into this position where I have both active toes. I'm kind of pinching the side of my partner's rib cage. From here, I'm going to advance my left knee, in this case, over my partner's bicep. So as I do that, I'm going to advance to the bicep. And you see how my right knee, again, it becomes the shelf. I feed my left hand into the far side collar. And I'm also staying attached to the same side lapel with my right hand. As I do this now, I'm going to bring my head to the near side and just finish the position just like so. I'm already in the position where my body is flat. I can just try and put my right arm in to finalize the side control, or again, like whichever control position. Are your elbows okay? I just want to write it.
Yeah, the way.
It's okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Otherwise, I can try and do it somewhere else.
No, it's
okay.
This is fine.
Okay. So one more time. I was like, shit, elbows. Yeah, I'm going under. So you kind of immediately go into it, but again, this is more just as a practice, like if you're from here, you can get used to it sometimes you go around, leg drag. So I remember some of you talking about the stack earlier, so if you have those stack questions, like please give them up so I can rehear them and we can explore like maybe where you're getting stuck, okay? Can you stack yourself? So yeah, from here I'll go on this. This is the final one. Okay. So I have both of my knees kind of pinching the side of my partner's body. I'm using active chest pressure just to keep my partner's weight into the toes. I put one knee down over the bicep. I'm looking for the far side lapel. My right hand, and again I stay attached to the same side. I can drop my left knee now and use my head to separate the legs. So again, I'm chest to chest pretty much, and I can just finalize the position. So again, active chest pressure. So you have the option to stack, or also, if you feel like you don't really want to, you try and stack the person when you're having a lot of trouble, you can, and again, go very gently with your partner, because if they're not ready for it, it's going to be really abrasive on the neck. But I can gently push her into turtle from here also. So I'll do this slowly, right? Okay. I'm like pushing, applying weight here, and I return to the side, so it's just a nice, easy position for me to get to the back, without having to have the fear that I don't really like stacking, because we are going to develop different skill sets in different ways, right? And you might not gravitate necessarily towards the stack. You might just prefer attacking from the turtle. So my recommendation is also to think about we only have so much time in the training week. Whatever skill sets or whatever moves you feel more drawn to, think about it and try and work more on that. So me, like, I really like pushing people into turtle because recently I've been attacking rock from the front headlock. And immediately, if I'm pushing my opponent into turtle, it's an immediate scenario where I can go to funnel myself into front headlock scenarios. So start attacking the head, the neck. And I think it's a very good position to be offensive for. If you're not ready, for example, again, for ladies, maybe you don't want to be inside control to attack, and then you have to funnel again to think about how to get to the back. My recommendation is to explore pushing people into the turtle from the stacking position. Very, very high percentage, and you'll often see a lot of the AOJ players pushing people into turtle. If you watch a lot of the exchanges, especially in no-gi, always trying to push people from like some type of stack position or duck combo into turtle. And it's very, very effective. So watch it more back. You see, immediately I'm already on the side. I start attacking the back. You see, I love the back so much I didn't even think about the front hand. I was like, oh my god, I can do the back. But as soon as you push down, you can also just like hang out here with the chin strap, just cup the tricep. You start trying to look for any of the upper body attacks if you know any from that.
Then I kind of drive my shoulder into him.
No, go back. Start again. So get your left arm, like look at my hand, all the way down. Yes. Now bend your elbow and put your left knee on the floor. Yeah, and make yourself completely perpendicular. So like 90 degrees. Yes. So you feel this already. That this is already technically like a half stack position, and if he does a lousy job at retaining the guard, then you can kind of already do the first, yes, exactly, it's already a pass, technically. But let's say maybe he's able to frame really hard on the bottom leg, so like it's not super easy. What you're gonna do is, your head and your shoulder determines the direction of the stack, right? So if you have too much forward pressure, it's probably going to go into the normal pass, right? But if you weight shift a little bit more weight towards your butt and use your ear, yes, exactly. Then you can guide it into a stack and you replace your ring exactly like that.
So no pushing.
I think there's so many ways to stack in the league, but I like this the most at the moment because it's also, you can perform it exactly the same in no-gi, which is amazing. You know, it's almost one-to-one. And this detail with the elbow, bringing my hip and my knee to the level of the elbow, staying 90 degrees, it feels like I don't have to use too much physicality to stack the person, whereas I would have traditionally associated stacking with strength. But since I like have these details of the stack.
And what would you tell the Margot, the white belt Margot now on how to train and preserve your body, but still get the black belt at some point, right? How to survive all this as a smaller, man person?
I think
woman.
I was in a very fortunate position when I started that I had already been training almost my entire life, and not in jiu-jitsu, but I mean like a certain level of strength training. I did other martial arts, so I wasn't like totally deconditioned. So actually it was quite easy for me to personally preserve my body, but it's also in alignment with like a Chinese martial art philosophy, which very much embodies the balance between soft and hard, external and internal. So if I just briefly explain that, a lot of the time in jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of hard shit, and it's a lot of external. We're always trying to achieve a certain physical shape, but we don't really inform the internal mental process of like how we should be feeling, or we don't actually, very seldom do we ever ask ourselves, hey, like actually what sort of fighter am I? Have you ever asked yourself that? Like, what sort of fighter am I? We just kind of like assume that in martial arts or in combat sports, oh, I have to be aggressive and I have to be dynamic and I da. But these are all like preconceived labels. I consider myself to probably be one of the softest athletes or competitors rather that is on the circuit that's successful. If you hit my nose in training, I will hate you forever. Do not boop my nose. No, I'm joking. Like a piece of advice to like preserve the body though.
Like would you roll with bigger guys? Do you avoid bigger
I used
guys?
to. I used to
Or
a lot,
like
but
this is like thing, right? I mean, like you have no idea, but you feel like you have to roll with everyone, right?
no, I used to feel that way, but as I got older too, I became much more unapologetic about it because it doesn't. Think of my daily life as a professional athlete. I don't necessarily train in a gym environment that's different from you guys. And like, let me elaborate on that a little bit. It might be different because of the training partners or like the training methodology or whatever, but it's a room full of professionals and hobbyists. So often you will have to roll with hobbyists, but actually you don't have to. Does that make sense? So you kind of at a certain point have to filter who you roll with, in my opinion, in order to preserve your body. Because I think especially for a lot of women, we get into this cycle of like, oh no, like I feel inclined to do so, but it's often at a detriment to your body because you feel like shit the next day, or it doesn't actually produce a productive roll. Like if you're in bottom side control for 5 minutes, are you training? Or like I could have done that same work in bed. You feel me? Like it's not actually work. But if, for example, the training partner is willing to modulate in a constructive way, because modulation is a very hard skill set. Like it needs to be trained. Like what I often find is that a lot of men either modulate too much or too little, and if you modulate too much, it's also not helpful. You know. So I think like this is not just applicable to the women in the room, is applicable to everybody, but I think it's totally fine to just say like, hey, like I love you as a person, but I don't want to roll with you, you know. And like it's honestly the problem of the other person if you take offense to it, but you really shouldn't. It's like the number of times that I felt bad about turning down rolls when it just like in no way benefited me. I've just done it for so many years that I really took away from my training. And if I compound the amount of days that I did that over time, I definitely would have achieved much more. I don't regret it in any way because that's just who I am as a human being. Like, I like giving, I like sharing, I like giving up my time to help others. But there's like a fine balance between the two. I think it's definitely very helpful for preserving the body. My body has been a lot healthier since I've been rolling with people more my size and lighter. And it's also the most realistic in terms of developing skills. If you're developing skills with someone roughly the same size, you're going to have the most realistic exchange. But you know, like we all have different circumstances, right? With like different goals. Not everyone's training to be like a competitor, so you don't necessarily have to train in a way that, oh, I'm only going to train with people my size. You can if that like makes sense to you, or like you may be very injury prone, then I would suggest like training with people roughly your size. But if, for example, like you enjoy training with people of all sizes and it doesn't hurt you, I don't think there's any issue with that. If you want to progress fast, you have to study. And it's not to say don't go to class anymore and just go to open mat. That's also impossible. But the most optimal way to get better would really to get a group of people that you like to train with that are willing to develop skill sets with you. And you bring them, you already studied the material at home, then you come to class to do it. And this is pretty much the reverse classroom model that B team adopted too. And it's brilliant because you've done all the studying at home already, so you kind of have an idea of what you're trying to achieve. And you come into the class and it's mainly about like drilling it if you need to get the reps, like to kind of get the muscle memory, and then you're already going into specific training with some resistance, and then going into live sparring, trying to apply it. That would be my advice to get to the highest level. And because you're also choosing the resistance level initially, very unlikely that you're going to get injured. It's a much healthier way to keep your body healthy.
You said before that not always the most technical person wins, but like the most like aggressive or the person that doesn't hesitate. How do you train that part for competition? Like technique is like easy to train, but
It's hard, right? It's like I don't know your full personality yet, but for me, one of the hardest things is being an asshole in class. It's so hard. Like, if I go especially to a new spot, like I'm visiting, right? If you roll with me, it's highly unlikely that I'm gonna try and beat you up. And like, I have like a very strong people-pleasing tendency that I want to kind of curate the role. And I do this to black belts too. It's not just like a color belt thing. Doesn't matter you're a white belt or a black belt. Like I've developed this tendency. And I think for me, like the asshole bit is like, well, I want to be perceived as a nice person. But in that manner, it makes it hard to roll in that way. You understand? Like if I just like roll, quote unquote, in a Brazilian way, it doesn't feel like who I am as a person, because I don't like to roll rough. I want to have beaten the person because I'm more technical or because I have superior timing, not because like I'm a meathead. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, that's my narrative. But I fully acknowledge that that's my narrative, and there's no problem with doing that, especially because of the competitive. You know? So if your goals are competitive, right, you kind of have to like poke yourself and you're like, am I creating a narrative here? Like, is this serving me? Because for me, it's not. And I know that. That's why I also work with a sports psychologist. And I do online coaching too. You know? So part of my job is actually telling people that you have narratives. Like you have to like kind of get out of it. Like then our work is kind of like breaking out of that. But for myself, like it's constantly reminding myself that it's actually okay. But I have specific people that I know it's totally okay to go balls to the wall. But I won't do that with everyone, just out of respect, you know. Because like if someone didn't sign up to train that way, it's not nice if you kind of want to train in a competitive way and you didn't sign up for it. But if someone else is trying to compete, I think that's usually okay. Then you slowly have to decondition yourself out of it. That's kind of what happened to me at AOJ, was like deconditioned out of me. Because at Unity, it's very much like be the most complete version of yourself. Whoever you are as a human being, that's going to manifest on you now. And I'm like, well, that's amazing, but it wasn't making me any more aggressive as a competitor. It was just making, if I won, it was truly on my own terms. Going to AOJ for me was like trying not to conform. I really hate that word. It's like very against a lot of my values, but trying to like listen in some capacity to see what I could cherry pick about becoming a more aggressive fighter, and trying to kind of break my own psychology. Like how could I break out of my own psychology to train that way? And for me, it's definitely going to be easier because at AOJ everyone's competitive. Like if you're not smashing them, they're like, are you alright? Like, are you having an off day? But I know like if you're in an environment where there are fewer competitors, especially women, it's hard. You have to really curate it, but it's not impossible. That's all.
And just maybe a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You mentioned timing. How do you train that like efficiently? Do you just roll and like hope to improve it like that, or do you do it more specifically, like reaction drilling? Or
I think, at least for me, the number one thing that I did for myself, especially in my purple belt career, because I think a lot of my jiu-jitsu and my ways of thinking was all at purple belt. I didn't necessarily get much more developed at black belt. I just became more well-rounded at black belt. I watch tape and I kind of see like at which points, like every sequence I look at, there's a beginning, middle, and end of the story. So I can also call this like early stage, mid stage, late stage. in every sequence, I also film my rolls a lot. Not at AOJ, but at open mats, I try to film myself. And because I know in most rooms that I walk into, if I roll with someone, I can generally tell, even if I did not necessarily beat them in that roll, I can tell you with quite a lot of certainty how I can beat that person. And I didn't have to necessarily have passed their guard, I didn't need to sweep them, but I can tell because I know if I change the timing in certain sequences, what might have happened. I just know what timing is required to get to certain places around the body. But that's also from a lot of experience. But the thing that I needed to do first was to develop my eye. And to develop my eye, first it came from like, not just studying footage of others, but studying footage of myself. Because then I could see that, okay, when I do this move, I tend to pause here. When I pause here, this person does this leg pumping motion. If I had done this or accelerated here, I could have gone in this space. And what I did over time, every time I observed my own footage, when I went back to the next training session, I tried to get back into the same situation and see, was my conclusion correct? Because I didn't assume that I was correct. Over time, I became more reliable with my predictions. So then over time, it just became reality.